be removed once you do the Hajj. And the Prophet ﷺ says, there is no reward for an acceptable good Hajj except Al-Jannah. Al-Hajj al-Mabrur laysa lahu thawabun illa Al-Jannah. So above and beyond the expunsion of your bad record, you get at least in paradise. Of course, if you keep up with the rest of the new open book that you open with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is to help everyone make sure that his or her Hajj is really done appropriately. Okay? I would like to warn you that there could be lots of fiqh opinions in the details. So I'm not going to bore you with this is the evidence of that. I want to give you the actions as a middle ground fiqh choice as it can be. Something that is both correct and something that is easy, not extreme, and not too loose to give you the anxiety about whether my Hajj is good or not. The definition of Hajj in Arabic is قصد الشيء المعظم وإتيانه. That's why when some of Middle Eastern political leaders used to go to Moscow every year, we used to call it their Hajj. They are going for some place, and now they shifted. They are coming to Washington. That is the annual Hajj and Umrah to renew their contracts and everything. But for the Muslim, our Hajj is to go to Mecca, to go to where Ibrahim was, as we heard the ayat, to where Ismail grew up, to where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ grew up, preached and taught, and started to teach people what the religion of Islam is about. So Hajj means heading for an honorable person or place. That is the linguistic meaning of the word. Okay? From an Islamic standpoint, Hajj means worshipping Allah by the performing of the Hajj rites, which are defined as specific acts performed at specific time and place in a specific way. The word specific here is key. So you want to go for Hajj, you have to dress appropriately. You have to observe certain restrictions throughout the time after you make your intention and enter into the state which we call Ihram. So there are certain things that you have to live by, certain rules that are different from other rules. Rules that are concerned with the place, and rules that are regarded with the spiritual aspect of your engagement during the Hajj. So Hajj, technically speaking, is defined as performing certain required rituals at certain times, at certain places, in a certain specific way. That is the definition of Hajj from an Islamic standpoint. What are the benefits of Hajj? It's a fifth pillar which completes, you have the four pillars hopefully, right? And you want to perform the fifth. That completes the requirements of the five pillars of Islam. And in that you leave your wealth and family for the sake and the pleasure of Allah, which shows your reliance and dependence on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It shows your trust to Allah. It also leads you to develop special type of patience. Patience unlike whatever you have been exercising throughout your life. In the Hajj, especially in crowded places of Hajj, you get to be pushed and shoved, and sometimes people may scream at you, and you have to keep in your mind and heart, I cannot answer even theoretically. Okay? That develops a deeper sense of patience that is much more than the patience when you come to Al-Hijrah or any other place. Okay? Also, it is a way in which we spend our wealth that we've earned supposedly from halal means. Allah is good and He doesn't accept anything that comes from less than a good source. إِنَّ اللَّهَ طَيِّبٌ لَا يَقْبَلُ إِلَّا طَيِّبًا. Also praising Allah a lot. During the Hajj, you know what the season of Hajj is full of? The word Allah. Everybody is engaged in something to do with Allah. 2-3 million people have joined you or you have joined them, and the only joint thing between all of you is you are at a specific place, which is the Holy Land of Mecca, and you are doing a special ritual. You are all worshipping Allah. You are all engaged in the praise of Allah, seeking His forgiveness, His love, and His support. It is a show of submission and servitude. It is an expression of ultimate submission. Who could tell you to leave your business, leave your family, leave your money, spend a good chunk of your savings on a trip to a place that you've not been there before, to go through certain rituals in a certain way, and come back and expect that your sins are forgiven? Who could do this other than Allah? And who could respond to such a call except someone whose heart is full of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You believe the history of the place. You believe the heritage of that place. You believe the prophets who walked in that place. You believe in the spiritual value of taking that trip. And you believe in the promise of Allah that indeed your sins are going to be forgiven. And you believe in your will and determination to comply throughout the trip, and that is a show of what other than submission. So it is an ultimate way of showing submission, less than nothing, but giving all of your money and your life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what Hajj is really about. Also, it forces everyone engaged to cooperate for what is good, to enjoy the good, and forbid what is evil. When people are shoving, you will find yourself automatically protecting whoever is weak around you. Whether it is a child or woman or someone who's elderly, you will find yourself automatically doing what is morally right, not to protect your person, but to protect others who are now under your care without being your dependents. That is something that you don't experience as often. But in the Hajj, you experience this more often than in any other place. Knowing other Muslims from all over the world. This is something that we tend to forget, unfortunately, during the Hajj. When we go to the Hajj, and our focus is on the logistics of Hajj, we end up focusing on people that Allah is focusing on. You know, when Allah looks at the people performing Hajj, His eyes, His focus, His look, His concentration is on the people going through the rituals of the Hajj. And our eyes should be on the same. You should be part of that huge celebration of what being a believer is about, what being a submissive Muslim is all about. It is that you go to the desert, right? And you plan everything ahead of time, but you should expect that nothing will be perfect. I have not yet met a person, even those who paid tens of thousands of dollars to go for supreme Hajj, who have gone through a perfect Hajj. Okay? And by perfect, I mean the Hajj that you've never felt the pushing or the shoving. Even kings and presidents are pushed and shoved in the Hajj. Were it not for the, wall of securities that they surround themselves with, their security get pushed and shoved in the Hajj. So in the Hajj, you get very intimate with people, and we forget to get to know each other. Even people traveling in the same group, they don't get the time, or they don't invest some of their time to get to know each other closer, which is not good for a Hajj. You should know each other. After all, it is this ayah that the Prophet used in his Hajj to tell us we are one family of humans. إِنَّ أَبَاكُمْ لَوَاحِدٌ إِنَّ إِلَهَكُمْ لَوَاحِدٌ كُلُّكُمْ لِآدَمْ وَآدَمْ مِنْ تُرَابٍ لا فضل لعربي على عجمي ولا عجمي على عربي ولا أبيض على أسود ولا أسود على أبيض إلا بالتقوى والعمل الصالح. In essence, telling all of us that we are all one family, we all come from Adam, we all worship one Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is no preference or virtue or more value for an Arab over an non-Arab, or a non-Arab over an Arab, a black over a white, or a white over a black. We are all one brotherhood. One brotherhood. And the best among us in the sight of Allah is one who is most pious. That is what we hear from the Prophet in the context of Hajj. So getting to know Muslims in your group and outside of your group is one reason that Allah is putting you in that huge crowd of people that come from all over the world. And here comes something tangible of that level of brotherhood and contact. Sharing whatever little Allah has provided for you. You have somebody next to you, offer them some. Okay? You got your lunch, you know somebody is begging outside of your tent, give them something. Even though some people will tell you, these people are professional beggars and so on and so forth, you are bigger than the beggar. Okay? Your heart should be bigger than the person who is a professional beggar on the Hajj sites. Total forgiveness for past sin. While this is listed like the last, but that is in fact is the ultimate reward for the Hajj. So now that we know how important Hajj is and the experience of Hajj, we need to know why do we make Hajj to that place, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that the first house of worship ever built for or laid down for people is that house of Mecca, which is the holy shrine of Mecca, that was built by Adam, remodeled by Ibrahim, and re-remodeled by various generations of Muslims and Arabs. Even the pagans ended up rebuilding the Kaaba the last time it was rebuilt. Why? Because they held it in dignity and honor. They believe it is most significant symbol of their religious and moral life. They gave it the value of being the center of their worship, even though as they put idols inside it to worship the idols. They did not put it somewhere else. They put it inside the Kaaba. As ironic as this is, but they held the Kaaba in very high esteem. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that this house is full of blessings and of guidance for all worlds. In it are manifest signs, the stand of Abraham, and he who enters it, he is secure. To Allah is a duty people owe, that is, pilgrimage to the house on those who can afford the journey. But if any denies faith, which means rejects Hajj and rejects the obligation of Hajj, Allah has no need for any of His creations. He doesn't need any of His creation. He doesn't need our Hajj, He doesn't need our money, He doesn't need our traveling. It is for us. But He made it obligatory to connect us with our heritage. You know that every community, as the Quran says, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ جَعَلْنَا مَنْسَكًا هُمْ نَاسِكُوهُ. Every nation, Allah has made certain rituals obligatory on them. On us is this Hajj. That is the place and the time and the rituals we have to go through. Allah instructed us about the obligation of Hajj in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ, and complete the Hajj and the Umrah to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that precludes any joint intention. If someone is going to do anything else, then it is a mix of intention. Allah would want you to go, your pure intention is Hajj. Then someone may raise a question and say, well, what about if I take few $1,000s, I want to buy some stuff on my way back and do some business. Is this allowed? Yes, it is allowed. It is allowed that you do that. But first and foremost, you have to go with, from the minute of your intention till the minute you're done with Hajj, there is no business, there is no even business of marriage or even engagement. So you see a friend and you know he has a good daughter to marry. You don't even open the issue until both of you are done with the final manasik of Hajj. Okay? That little business of discussion is not allowed, let alone anything else. But after the Hajj, the Quran gives you a license. لِيَشْهَدُوا مَنَافِعَ لَهُمْ وَلِيَذْكُرُوا اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَى مَا رَزَقَهُم مِّن بَهِيمَةِ الْأَنْعَامِ. So that they remember and mention the name of Allah and praise Allah, but also to gain some benefits from their trip if they so desire. What about the time of Hajj? The Quran says, Al-Hajj ashhurun ma'lumat. فَمَنْ فَرَضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجَّ فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فُسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. Three major central prohibitions one should never engage in during the Hajj. You should not engage in sexual activities from any type under any circumstances. You should also never engage in anything that resembles disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nor should you enter into any argumentation of any type with anyone under any circumstances. Why is this? Why is this? We are instructed to go for this Hajj, and most of the Hajjis, they don't go with their family and the kids, right? They leave everything behind. And of course, if not most, but all of the Hajji would go and leave their business behind. You don't take your office, you don't take your everything with you, you leave everything. So when you go for Hajj, Allah wants you to exhibit the ultimate tawheed, that He is your ultimate love. He is your ultimate focus. You're not busy with anything else, and you are not distracted by anything else that engages you. Even if somebody wants to engage you, you disengage yourself and move on with your Hajj. وَمَا تَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ يَعْلَمُهُ اللَّهُ. And whatever good that you do, Allah knows it, and take your provision for the journey. Indeed, the best of provision is piety. So Allah is instructing us to take lots of righteousness with us, as much as you can. Pack your righteousness as you leave. Don't treat yourself as you're packing your sins to drop them there, along with more sins that you do. No, pack your piety to protect you against any further sins. You know, when you go to ask somebody, for example, to forgive you, you don't want to do something to hurt him on your way, right? I'm coming to apologize for what I have done, and by the way, I want to tell you something that hurts, right? You don't do that if you want that person to accept your apology. When you're going to Allah, pack your piety. Take the best of who you are with you onto that kind of trip. Also, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Those who glorify Allah's rituals and holy places and holy sites, then that is a sign of the piety of their hearts. So how do we show our piety? By revering, showing reverence to Allah and showing glorification to the places and the sites we go through. Then what are the requirements for Hajj? Basic requirements to qualify to be a Hajj. One has to be a Muslim, one has to be at the age of puberty or older, one has to have his sanity, to have his mind intact, one has to be a free person, so it is not obligatory on a slave or a prisoner of war or a prisoner of any kind, because he cannot make it. It's only on the free to make it. But one should not be only free from jail, but should also be free from debt. And we can discuss this at the question time. Okay? Then you must have the financial ability and the physical ability to go. There are limitations, yes, but if you cannot do it because you don't have the fund, it is not obligatory on you to do it. Okay? If you don't have the physical health and ability, but you can pay for somebody to carry you, and you can afford it, and it's not going to hurt you health-wise, then you should be able to do it because you can go through it. Okay? But if you cannot do either, then it is not obligatory on you or mandatory to go for Hajj. What is the best attitude that one should have for Hajj? First of all, your earning that you use for the trip or leave for your family must all be from halal sources. It cannot be from riba, it cannot be from theft, it cannot be from cheating, it cannot be from selling something haram like wine, alcohol, and other things that are prohibited in Islam. Staying away from any sexual activity, any disobedience, argumentation, we explain this. Added to this is all useless talk, let alone haram talk, like backbiting or instigating negative feelings between people, al-mashi bin namima. All of this is prohibited and precluded. Humbleness or humility and avoiding excessive ornaments. We're not going to show off. We are going to show Allah, not people. And Allah doesn't care what you wear. So take less of your ornaments and outer ornaments that you usually wear. Volunteer additional ibadah and sacrifice as needed. If you can, when you are there, you can do charity. You can spend some money to give to the poor. If somebody got, for example, you know him, he is in your group, he got stolen, but he needs some money. Giving him a loan is a charity. Even if you restore it, you get it back when you come back. So you can do a lot of good work during the Hajj, above and beyond the rituals of Hajj. You can sacrifice, if you want, more than the basic sacrifice that you are required to do in certain situations. To take difficulties with a good spirit and not to be always in anxiety and despair and, oh, I didn't know that this is what Muslims do, and all of those things that you may hear from other people. You need to stay away from that spirit of negativity that takes over some people because they are not paying attention to Allah, they are paying attention to the logistics. Or the food is not on time, or the bus didn't come on time, or the hotel didn't give me a good whatever service. All of those distractions should not busy you from the focus of your trip. Okay. For the journey, there are certain things that can be helpful, and this is by way of logistics that we need to be aware of. Of course, you need to take your ihram, the 2 pieces of white clothing. We will talk about this. Take some slippers that you may wear when you put your ihram, waist pouch to keep your money, and belt, personal clothing, personal hygiene, sunglasses if you need it, umbrella. Those are very important if you're making your Hajj in the summer. But even in the winter, the sun can be very glazy and the rays can be quite harmful. So umbrella and sunglasses are not precluded even in winter time. Documents that you need, of course, make copies of them and keep them in a safe place. Better yet, keep a copy of your passport with your family here and take another one with you separate from your passport, like you can leave it in the hotel away from your passport somewhere else. Medical records, as you think your doctor will tell you what you need and what you don't. Vaccination records should be submitted, of course, to the embassy before you leave it. And take some money that you may need, but don't take thousands of dollars, because the chance you lose some money in that trip is not small. Also take medications, especially for respiratory and gastrointestinal infections, common colds, pain relief, antibiotics if needed, skin treatments. By the way, all of those medications are readily accessible in Mecca. There are literally tens of pharmacies around the Haram. So if you don't have something specific that you may find difficult to find over there, take it from here. Otherwise, almost everything, you can prescribe medication for yourself. Okay? And the pharmacy will oblige. Okay? They don't require a doctor's prescription in Saudi Arabia like in other countries. Okay? So you can tell them I need 500 milligram amoxicillin or something. Yes. So check with your physician if you are on regular treatment for anything as what you need to take with you. On your trip, the first step is you will pack your stuff, you're out. Remember to make your dua for traveling. Whether you're going by any method of transportation, always remember what Allah told us to say, سبحان الذي سخر لنا هذا وما كنا له مقرنين وإنا إلى ربنا لمنقلبون. And you say this as soon as you settle on any ride, whether it is your car, airplane, or any other bus that you take. Okay? Also part of the dua, اللهم إني أسألك في سفري هذا البر والتقوى ومن العمل ما ترضى. It is written for you who don't know Arabic in transliteration and translation. اللهم هون علينا سفرنا هذا واطوي عنا بعده. اللهم أنت الصاحب في السفر والخليفة في الأهل. This is the dua that the Prophet ﷺ used to make when he goes into travel, and the conclusion is اللهم إني أعوذ بك من وعثاء السفر وكآبة المنظر وسوء المنقلب في المال والأهل. We mentioned the definition of Hajj before, so we're going to skip this one. What are the types of Hajj that anyone can make? And I want you to pay attention from here on, because we're going to use technical terms that we need to learn and pay attention to. Umrah is called the minor Hajj. Okay? Umrah is called the minor Hajj, or the minor pilgrim. Okay? Pilgrimage. Hajj can be done in one of three formats. One format is what is called Ifrad, which means Hajj alone. Only Hajj without Umrah. Okay? The second is Qiran, when you combine Umrah and Hajj in one Ihram. I don't mean Ihram here meaning one clothing, but one state of Ihram, which means once you enter Ihram, you do not take it off until you are done with all of the basic rites or rituals of Hajj. Tamattu', which means you make Umrah followed by Hajj in two separate Ihram states, which means you attend Ihram for Umrah. Once you finish the Umrah, you get out of the Ihram and you dress normally, and you are allowed to do things that we normally do. And then when the Hajj time comes, on the 8th of the Hijrah, you make intention again, you dress Ihram, and you continue in your Ihram until you have thrown the Jamrah of Al-Aqaba. So we have three types of intentions, three types of Hajj. If you want to make Hajj alone, and we'll talk later about who should make which type of choices. Okay? You make Hajj alone for people who have done Umrah before, okay, and they believe either their health or circumstances would not allow them to either combine the Umrah with the Hajj or do Tamattu', which requires two types of sa'i, separate and independent from each other, plus the tawaf. The most difficult rites of Hajj are the tawaf and the sa'i, and those are the most basic ones. So if you do Hajj alone, you do tawaf once and you do sa'i once. That's the least that you do. If you do Hajj with Umrah combined in one ihram, which we call here Qiran, which is the second option here, then people who do this should be willing to stay in their ihram from the minute they cross the miqat until they are done with the manasik. Who could stand in ihram? And why is this difficult? It is difficult for people who are arriving in Mecca 5, 10, 7 days before Hajj. Why? Because you will be staying in your ihram, you will not be clipping your nails, shaving your hair, perfuming your body, not doing so many other things, because you are restricted in the state of ihram for the whole period. So if you arrive early in Mecca, then Qiran is not your best choice. Rather, Tamattu' is your best choice. Why? Because in Tamattu', if you arrive 10, 15 days before Hajj, or even 1 week or 5 days, then you can do the Umrah, take off your ihram, which is a break from ihram, have 5 days of freedom, right? And then by the 8th, you put on your ihram again and go for Mina and the manasik as we will explain. So that gives you a break. So if you're coming early, then Hajj is not Hajj. Hajj alone is not a good choice. Umrah and Hajj combined in one ihram is not your best choice. Tamattu' is your best choice. Okay? In the two choices, Qiran and Tamattu', the second and the third choices, you have to have money to pay for a sacrifice. Okay? So who, for the Hajj, who does only Ifrad, which is Hajj, he or she is not required to do sacrifice. But one should never make the choice like this because of $100 here and $100 there. You will be spending thousands of dollars to get there. So $100 more should not be an impediment for this. Okay? So if you had made Umrah, and this is the thing that we need to focus on, I want you to read this with me again. Ifrad, the first time, is only Hajj without Umrah. It's only for those who made Umrah before and those who do not have time or ability to do it again. You cannot do Umrah with Hajj. And there is no sacrifice needed. Qiran, you combine Umrah and Hajj in one ihram. It's mandatory for those who bring their sacrifice, who lead their sacrifice with them through the Hajj trip. Why? It's a speculation on my part. But because you are leading an animal throughout the trip, okay? So for you to sacrifice some trouble during this process is a sense of, taking some pain, and exercising that difficulty helps you become more merciful and considerate to the animal you have led to the place. But again, that's a speculation on my part. You don't find an answer to this question in fiqh books anyway. Okay? But the Prophet ﷺ says, when he made his Hajj, he made it Quran, he made the second type of Hajj, but he made the comment, he said, had I not brought my sacrifice with me, I would have gone for Tamattu'. So, of course, that's not applicable to us. You fly, you're not going to take a lamb with you on the flight, right? Or camel for that matter. So it is only applicable for those who come traveling from local areas who bring their sacrifice with them. Okay? But that also could be available for people like you. If you want to combine, let us say for example, you went to Medina first, and I want to give you circumstances that forces you to go Quran. You're going, but your intention is tamattu, because tamattu is the way the Prophet wished he would do Hajj, and every Sahabi took it that this is the best way to do the Hajj, and many of them raised to do that. Okay. Now, you go to Hajj, and your group says, we are landing in Medina. We are visiting the mosque of the Prophet first, right? And then we will go to Mecca, and when it is the 8th, we will start the rituals of Hajj, as usual, like everybody else. Then coming to Mecca, you got stuck in traffic, which happens from time to time, or got forbid a flat tire or something, and your bus arrived in Mecca only on the 8th in the morning. I'm giving you a good time now. When do you do the Umrah, right? And when do you break up for Tamattu'? And what Tamattu' is this going to be? Some people say, even 2 hours without Ihram is good for me. You can do it. You can do it. But what is the payoff for this? The payoff is, if you do Quran, then the sa'i you have done with your initial Umrah is going to serve as a substitute for the sa'i of Hajj. So when you are really tired at the end of Hajj, and you are struggling to go through the tawaf of Hajj, you don't have to repeat the sa'i. But if you break for tamattu', then the sa'i you made with your initial Umrah is separate from the sa'i of Hajj, which you have to do after the tawaf of Hajj. Is this clear now? Any question on this one? Okay. The third one, which is tamattu', it is for all others. Anyone else can do tamattu'. Okay? And sacrifice becomes a must. Okay? Of course, sacrifice is also a must for the second choice. Okay? And as I mentioned, sometimes you are forced to do Quran instead of tamattu'. Okay? Here it raises a question. Let us say that some of us did not arrive on the 8th of Dhul-Qa'dah. We arrived, in fact, to Mina, which is very unlikely because the government forces people to move early enough from Medina. But let us say, for whatever circumstances, you arrived on the 9th of Dhul-Hijjah to Mecca. What do? You go running to Arafah. Because Arafah is a must, and you cannot risk to miss it. And the way to Arafah is not about the miles or kilometers, it is about the traffic. Okay? Some people end up walking from Mecca to Arafah just to avoid any chances if they are late. So if you arrive on the 9th, head directly to Arafah with your group if you can. Okay. Again, the types of Hajj, as you could see here, are mentioned in summary. Ifrad, which is making single Hajj without Umrah. It's Hajj rights only. It can be performed only by persons who have fulfilled the duty of Umrah before, and no sacrifice is required. So this screen basically is a summary of what we have been explaining. Quran, which is to combine Umrah and Hajj in the same state of Ihram. Umrah, you make Umrah, you keep your Ihram on, and you follow the Umrah by Hajj. It is required for those who bring their sacrifice with them from their starting point. Sacrifice here is required, as it is also required in the Tamattu'. Tamattu' is to perform Umrah and Hajj with a separate Ihram for each. And I'm not talking about Ihram as a clothing. Somebody says, I have to change my clothing. I'm going to explain that ihram is a state of ibadah that you enter into both with your clothing and with your intention. That is what we're talking about. So when we talk about separate ihram, I don't mean that you go buy two ihrams if you want to do umrah and hajj. No, the same ihram can work for you. Okay? So the steps are, you make ihram, you do umrah. Then take off ihram and lead a normal life. Then get into ihram again and perform the hajj. Is this clear? Okay. I want you to remember the colors that you see here. Okay? Those color codes will help you define in the next several screens what act falls under what category or classification as far as rukn or wajib or sunnah. There are three types of acts in the hajj. Rituals that are regarded as rukn, which means if you miss it, then you're missing the hajj. If you miss it, you miss the hajj as a whole, which means you have to go back another year and make the hajj all over again. Okay? Wajib, which means obligatory, but if you do not do it, you owe a sacrifice. If you miss it, you owe a sacrifice. But the sunnah is highly recommended, but you owe no sacrifice if you don't do it, and your hajj is not abridged by or abrogated by missing one of those. Is this clear here? So this is what we call rukn in Arabic, or pillar, wajib or duty, sunnah or voluntary. Rukn or pillar, it is essential. If you miss it, your hajj is invalid. Your hajj must be repeated in another year. For wajib or duty, it is a requirement for hajj to be correct. If you miss it, you must sacrifice for your hajj to be complete. And sunnah is highly recommended for hajj's completeness, but if you miss it, your hajj is still valid and is still correct. So when you see something falling in a blue color, then you know what it is. In a purple color or in a burgundy color, you know what it points to. Now, the classification of Hajj rites. Hajj and Umrah acts are as follows. They have what is called pillars, with something you must perform. Otherwise, your Hajj or Umrah will not be valid. Okay? Number one is Ihram. And Ihram, as I mentioned, is a state of ibadah that you enter into. We will talk about this in details. Tawaf al-Ifada for Hajj. Sa'i for Hajj and Umrah. Arafah, to stand on Arafah for Hajj is rukn, is pillar. Jamratul Aqaba is a pillar on the day of sacrifice. Those are the pillars of Hajj as you could see it. Umrah's pillars are the Ihram, the Tawaf, and the Sa'i. Those are the pillars for Umrah. Ihram, Tawaf, and Sa'i. Very simple, straightforward process, and it doesn't take more than 2 hours to finish. Okay? What is wajib is something that must be done, otherwise a sacrifice is needed to compensate for it. Ihram from miqat. Let us say, we will talk about miqat, what is miqat, and so on and so forth, but ihram from a certain point is a must. So suppose somebody crossed that point and did ihram, he owes a sacrifice. So you have to be sure with your group, where is the miqat on your way to Mecca? Something vital for you to know. Okay? Second is the ihram dress for men. Women can dress anything that covers the body as they usually do, which we call hijab, full dress, loose-fitting clothing that they normally dress. Then staying overnight in Muzdalifah. Staying overnight in Mina during the days of Tashriq. Okay? Cutting your hair, throwing the jamarat, tawaf al-wada', all of these are wajibat of Hajj. We will talk about each one of them, but we need to look at them and memorize what are my wajibat, what are my duties that will make my Hajj complete. Then the sunnah is touching the black stone if you can, or kissing it if you reach close to it. Prayer behind Maqam Ibrahim once you finish Umrah or Tawaf. Staying in Mina on the 8th day of the Hijrah. These are sunnah. I want to emphasize the last one. This one. Staying in Mina on the 8th of the Hijrah. In the days of the Prophet ﷺ, there was no water in Mina. Mina was a plain desert mountain. Nothing there. So they used to designate a day before the day of Arafah to come to Mecca from the well of Zamzam and other places, pick water and take it up on their mules and donkeys and camels and go up in Mina to settle and set up the tents, set up the works, and to get settling places for them so that when after they do the Hajj and they do the Jamarat and they come to stay in Mina, Mina is ready to host them for the next 3 days. Okay? So they used to designate this day for that purpose. But it used to be a sunnah. For example, people who are handicapped, they used to go only to Arafat. They used not to go to Mina in that day. But they went to Mina afterwards. Okay? So Fuqaha classified this activity and that day and that stay in Mina only on the 7th on the 8th of the Hijrah. That Mina is what? Is a sunnah. But staying overnight in Mina, as you could see, during the next following days, it is a must. It is a wajib. It's not a pillar, but it is a wajib. Which means if you miss it, what do? You owe a sacrifice. Okay? It raises some questions. Some people say, okay, I don't have time and I want to go back early. Can I miss it intentionally and pay for a sacrifice? I'll pay $100 and I'm not going to stay in Mina. Can they do this? That would put their Hajj up in the air. Because all of the Hajj manasik, you travel thousands of miles to get there. And as soon as you get there, you want to come back? And by the way, the best days of Hajj and the best nights of Hajj are Mina. Mina is where you sit down by yourself with Allah to look back at your life and ask Allah to forgive you. And this is a very personal, very private moment given to us, a chance for 3 nights. Okay, and Allah allows us to go back. فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. If you go back in 2 days, that's fine. But don't go back a day after. Allah gave you a license to cut the 3 days into 2, but don't make it 0 and say, I'm going to pay you $100, God. This is not even mannered, if you want to think about it seriously. But people who have excuses that are legitimate, they can do this. Because staying in Mina, while you can request somebody to throw the stones on your behalf, but you cannot have somebody do the wajibat on your behalf. Okay? Staying in Mina, you cannot say, oh my son, you stay in Mina, I'm going to stay in the hotel. You can't do that. Okay? Umrah, step by step. What are the steps for Umrah? I want to alert everyone that we will be late for the Isha, so that we can finish this. Jazakumullah khair. I'm taking you with these arrows as it gives you step by step, and the colors will tell you what level of importance that act is. Okay? And I want to test your memory now. Reaching the miqat, the first step, is this pillar or sun? Okay, it's wajib. Okay, thank you. Making ghusl or wudu. It's a sunnah, mashallah. Very good. Putting on your ihram. It's a pillar. It's a rukn, right? Praying fard or sunnah as you put on your ihram. The sunnah. Making the niyyah. It's a fard. Right? Okay. Recite the talbiyah. It's a sunnah. Right? Okay. Making the tawaf. While it is a sunnah, it is highly required that you make the talbiyah. Because this is something the Prophet never missed, the Sahaba never missed. So it falls under the sunnah, but it's important that you make your intention. Okay. Making tawaf around the Kaaba for 7 cycles. It's a rukn, right? Okay. Pray 2 rak'ah behind the Maqam Ibrahim. Drink from Zamzam. Sunnah, right? Perform sa'i between Safa and Marwa. It's a rukn. Very good. Shaving or cutting throughout your hair for men and women should cut about 1 centimeter or 1 inch at the end or the tip of their hair. Wajib. So Umrah is easy. Right? What are the steps? Miqat. At the miqat or before you travel to the miqat, you can make ghusl, which is a sunnah or wudu. If you don't make it, it's okay to put the ihram on. Okay? But you do it before you cross the ihram. The miqat, I'm sorry. You have to put on your ihram before you cross the point of miqat. We'll tell you the miqats or the circle around the Kaaba. Once you put your ihram, you may pray a couple of rak'ah, you may not. It's a sunnah, but you must make your niyyah. And in your niyyah is included the talbiyah, which we'll talk about in the next screen. You recite the talbiyah, and then once you reach the Kaaba, what do? First thing is tawaf, which we'll explain in a minute. You have a place to pray. Pray anywhere. It doesn't have to be behind Maqam Ibrahim. You can pray 2 rak'ah after the tawaf anywhere in the Haram. Okay, so don't waste your time looking where is Maqam Ibrahim. And don't try to get close because it's overly crowded in those days. Overly crowded. Dangerously crowded, I would say. Okay? Then, after you finish with the tawaf, you go for sa'i. After you do the sa'i, your umrah is finished. But before you take off your ihram, before you exit the state of ihram for men or for women, before you exit the state of ihram and become free to do other things as usual, like clipping your nails and other things, you must shave your hair or cut your hair if you are a woman. Yes.
So the shaving of hair will be twice when we do tamattu?
You will cut it short if you do the umrah and leave the total shaving for the Hajj. If you're combining. I will keep the questions for last. Otherwise, I will really be distracted very badly. Okay. What is the miqat? The miqats are fixed locations around the Kaaba, away from the Kaaba. But it is not around the physical haram itself. It is outside the outskirts of Mecca. Okay, we'll show you where it is. It may not ever be crossed for anybody wanting to make Hajj or Umrah without putting their ihram and making their intention. If the person crosses them intentionally, he or she can go back to start over, or if your bus is gone, you offer a sacrifice, okay, to make up for this violation. People who live in these places between the miqats and Mecca can start ihram from their locations, which is not your case. Some people ask, what about if I go and I'm going to my relative in Mecca? Can I make my ihram from Mecca? I would say, if you go with the intention of Hajj or Umrah, what you need to do is, you go and make the Umrah intention before you enter into Mecca, do the Umrah, and then take off your ihram. And since you're staying in Mecca, definitely your intention for Hajj in that case will be from Mecca. You're not going to go back to the miqat to make intention for Hajj. Okay? So we are talking about intention for Umrah or for the Hajji who is going for Hajj alone or any type of Hajj. It has to be from the miqat. To know where the miqats are, if this is Mecca, then a point called Yalamlam, south of Mecca, way south of Mecca, is the miqat for the people from Yemen. Qarn al-Manazil is the miqat for Gulf countries and Eastern Arabian Peninsula. That Irq is the miqat for people from Iraq. Dhul Hulayfa is the miqat for people coming from the north, from the Medina in particular. People coming from the north, from Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, and Egypt, it is Dhul Jahfa, or what they call today the Yambo. No, I'm sorry. Dhul Hulayfa. Rabal, I'm sorry. Rabal for those who are coming with the ship. Okay? These are the places again. Dhul Hulayfa is for people coming from North Mecca. It is a place for people coming from Medina. It is about 6 or 7 miles away from Medina. It's also called Abiyar Ali. It is also called Wadi al-Haqiq. So it has 3 names. Your group leader should be able to help you defining these places so you don't have to struggle. Just ask your group leader as to where are we from the point of miqat, and you don't have to struggle. Northwest of Mecca is a location for people coming from Egypt and Syria and those places. Qarn al-Manazil is for people from the direction of Al-Ta'if. Yalamlam is for people coming from Mecca. That Irq is for people coming from Iraq. What is Ihram now? You remember many times we said Ihram, Ihram, Ihram. Ihram is both the name of the clothing you put on. It's called Malabis al-Ihram. But it is not the Ihram. It is called the clothing of Ihram. But Ihram itself is a state of ibadah that you enter into once you announce or proclaim your intention for Umrah or for Hajj. Okay? What is prohibited for me as soon as I enter into the state of Ihram? Number 1, cutting or shaving my hair, clipping my nail, wearing perfumes or colognes, killing or hunting animals or harmless insects, sexual activities of any kind or anything that leads to it, marriage proposals or marriage contracts or engagement proposals during the Ihram, covering your head or wearing clothes or shoes for men. As I mentioned in the beginning, there are varieties of fiqh opinions regarding some of these issues, okay? But I am giving you what is most conservative, if you will, but not very cumbersome, okay? So if you have questions about any of these restrictions, talk to me in the question time. Wearing gloves and niqabs for women, or borders, or especially tailored face covering. That is not allowed for women. So the ihram for women is what? All of the above, plus taking off their gloves if they wear them normally, taking off their face cover if they normally cover their face. When you go for Umrah or initial tawaf, this is how you dress your ihram. You can see this. This is your normal ihram clothing, and this is what is called especially al-tiba', which is to uncover your right shoulder and your right arm and let the ihram cover the rest of your upper part of your body. That is done, as we will say, in the first 3 rounds. But it is done only in the tawaf of qudum. It is not done in any other tawaf. And when you do tawaf al-qudum, and your intention was to make umrah, for example, as soon as you get to Mecca, the tawaf of the umrah will cover for the tawaf of qudum. So you don't do 2 tawafs, one for qudum and one for umrah. one tawaf will suffice for both. Specific intention for each type of niyyah. You will say, لبيك اللهم عمرة if your intention is for Umrah alone. لبيك اللهم حجا if you intend to make Hajj alone without Umrah. Or عمرة في حجة if your intention is to make Umrah and Hajj combined, what we call Qiran, which is the second option. And if you want to do Tamattu, you will say لبيك اللهم عمرة متمتعا بها إلى الحج, or عمرة and after finishing Umrah لبيك اللهم حجا, separate from each other. You can do it either way. Clear? Okay. We made the niyyah. After you make the niyyah, it is recommended that you make a reservational condition, that you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you if something unforeseen happened that prevented you from completing your rituals of the Hajj. Okay? For example, if somebody got sick, or God forbid, got in an accident, and he cannot continue to perform the rituals, then that will suffice for precluding the rest of the rites for that person. Of course, if he misses the pillar of Hajj, he will have to come and make Hajj. Okay? But if he misses all other duties and all other sunnah, he doesn't have to make any Hajj or anything. Right, Sheikh? Okay, you listen. It is right, okay? Since he is listening and he's not commenting. Okay. So the talbiyah is to say, immediately after you make the talbiyah of intention, then you engage yourself in لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك. That chanting that you do all throughout your ihram, all throughout your Hajj, is something of continuous affirmation of submission. We know the word affirmation from Western psychology, but we know it first in Islam. When you keep saying in the prayer, Allahu Akbar, Ya Wadi Ibrahim. When you keep saying Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Western psychologists will tell you that's an affirmation statement. You are affirming your belief in His greatness, right? Here you are affirming your submission, your total submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That there is no Allah but Allah, and there is no partner with Allah. You keep repeating it, and then you should pick some of that reaffirmation with you as you come back, and never ever again associate anyone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Upon entering the Kaaba, in the Sunnah, the dua, أعوذ بالله العظيم وبوجهه الكريم وسلطانه القديم من الشيطان الرجيم اللهم صل على محمد اللهم افتح لي أبواب رحمتك. As we mentioned, it's only a Sunnah. If you remember, say it. If you don't remember, just enter the Kaaba and say Bismillah والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Once you enter the Kaaba, you have to locate where are you from the black stone's corner. Where is the corner of the black stone? Because this will be the beginning of the point of your tawaf. And if you want to, once you intend to go to the Kaaba, before leaving from your hotel, after setting your stuff, you need to make either ghusl or wudu, because tawaf is part of ibadah. Okay? So you have to have wudu for the tawaf according to the most established opinion in my recollection. You start from the black stone or parallel to it. And you kiss it or touch it if you can, but don't venture to get there if you know that it is crowded. Make takbir at the black stone position, or when you get parallel to it, between the Yemeni corner and the black stone, recite the dua, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, or any other dua that you remember. And throughout the tawaf, keep making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And any dua is good. If you don't memorize enough du'as from now until then, try to learn some more du'as that you could pick with you. Here is a shot from the top of the haram to show you the King Abdul-Aziz, Ajiyat, Bilal gates as the best access that gives you the closest point to the black stone point is to enter the haram either from King Abdul-Aziz and you immediately turn right, or from Bilal or Ajiyat gates, which are smaller gates. Okay? If you get into the haram from any of these points, the black stone will be very close on your left side. You will be faced with the Rukn Yamani. Okay? And then you keep the Kaaba to your left and you keep turning, you will cross the black stone. I want to show you what we're talking about. Ajiyat and Bilal gates are here. King Abdul-Aziz gate is here. So if you get here from King Abdul-Aziz place and you start rolling, keeping the Kaaba to your left, you reach Al-Hajar al-Aswad right here. Okay? Al-Hajar al-Aswad or al-Aswad is right here. So if you get through Bilal or Ajiyat, you will be very close. If you get through King Abdul-Aziz, you will land yourself at this Yamani corner, which is here, and then you take yourself left turning around the Kaaba, as you will see here. Another shot. This is the King Abdul-Aziz gate, this is the Kaaba, this is the black stone corner, and here are the gates that call Bilal and Ajiyat. So if this is the black stone, you don't have to go to this specific spot. Anywhere around or across this line will be good for you as a beginner. And you begin by turning, as you see the arrows, you go left, the Kaaba should be to your left, and you start by saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and you keep going around. Then next to this, I want you to be reminded again of the classifications of the actions, so that when we go to the next screen, you know that burgundy is what? Pillar. Right? Pink is beauty, and the last one, sunnah, is blue. Okay. So the types of tawaf are as follows. A pillar, which is the tawaf of Umrah, okay, or tawaf al-qudum for the Hajj. If you're only doing Hajj alone, then it becomes part of this. Tawaf al-ifada for the Hajj, which is also called tawaf al-ziyarah. Okay? But tawaf becomes a wajib if it is tawaf qudum. Okay? And if it is combined with the Umrah, then it is a rukn of Umrah. If it is tawaf Umrah, then it is rukn. It is not sunnah. Right? Hello? Are you confused? Okay. It is sunnah if you enter the haram and you see it fit to make tawaf, you can do it. It is voluntary. It is sunnah. And you can do this at any time other than entering the haram. Okay. This is again the way of intiba, as we mentioned before. And it is only done in tawaf al-qudum, as we mentioned before. Okay? We will move quickly. After the tawaf, we mentioned that you make dua, pray to rak'ah if you can. These are sunnah, as we mentioned before. Right? You may recite Surah Al-Kafirun in the first rak'ah and Surah Al-Ikhlas in the second. You can pray this two rak'ah anywhere in the haram. It doesn't have to be at Maqam Ibrahim. Okay? What about the sa'i? The sa'i for Umrah, of course, The sa'i is only done if you're doing Umrah or Hajj. You don't do sa'i just for volunteer sa'i. Okay? Volunteers as a sunnah or voluntary act come in the tawaf. But the sa'i is only during Umrah or Hajj as part of the rituals itself. You do it 7 times. You start from the Safa and you go through Al-Marwa, and each direction is one trip. So you count from Safa to Marwa 1 time, from Marwa to Safa, these are 2 rounds, and each time you go each direction, it's 1 round. You do it 7 times in Umrah and 7 times in Hajj. Okay, unless you are doing Quran. How far are they? 700 yards or 700 meters? About quarter of a mile? It's about quarter of a mile. Yes? Yes, we are delaying the Isha to finish this one time, inshallah. Huh? About 15 minutes. May Allah give you all ajr for your patience. Jazakallah khair. Halq or taqsir, after the Umrah, you did the Umrah, you finished at the Marwa, and there you get your hair cut, and if you are a sister, you can wait until you get home. Something you need to be aware of, do not cut your friend's hair until yours is cut. Okay? Because the muhrim does not cut his hair or anybody else's hair in the state of ihram. Okay? So if you have a husband, then the husband needs to get his hair cut and then he can cut his wife's hair. Okay? Okay, one more reminder, and we're going for the Hajj rituals. What should I do the first day of Hajj, on the 8th of Al-Hijrah? Okay, you are in Mecca, you're done with your Umrah, you're finished with the manasik of Umrah, you got your hair shortened, and you're waiting for the 8th of Al-Hijrah. The 8th of Al-Hijrah is here. That counts as the first day of Hajj. And as we mentioned before, going to Mina is a sunnah. It is not required. It is not a duty. It is not a rukn. Okay? So, you put on your ihram for the Hajj, and you declare your intention unless you had declared your intention before. If you made tamattu and you said, لبيك اللهم عمرة متمتعا بها إلى الحج, then it is included. Okay? You recite the talbiyah, you go to Mina before Zuhr, or any time before sunset, or any time at night, if you so desire. You pray Zuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha in Mina. Prayers shortened, but not combined. They are shortened, but you don't do Zuhr and Asr together. You do each prayer in its time. You stay in Mina overnight, and then the first day of Hajj is complete. The second day of Hajj is what is called the major day of Hajj. Yawm al-Hajj al-Akbar is the day of Arafah in one interpretation. In another interpretation, it is the second day of Arafah, the day after Arafah, because it has more manasik in it than the day of Arafah. So on the day of Arafah, which is the 9th of Al-Hijrah, you go to Arafah after sunrise. You pray Zuhr and Asr in Arafah at the time of Zuhr in Jama'ah with your group. You stay in Arafah till after sunset. After sunset, you go down to Muzdalifah and you pray Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah. That will be, of course, after you arrive in Muzdalifah. You pick 7, 49 or 70 small pebbles from Muzdalifah if you can. If you can't, that's okay. You can move without it and pick them from Mina when you get there. You stay overnight in Muzdalifah unless you are excused by the virtue of being old, or women who may have difficulty, or children, or a group that has any of the above. A group gives, if you have 2 people who are handicapped in a group, or even 1 person, the entire group should move with the person. Okay? So if the group moves after midnight, you move with the group after midnight, because the chances of getting lost and missing your manasik is greater than losing some hasanat for going early following an excused person. Okay. The stone size that you pick should be medium, like the size of a chickpea, but not smaller and not larger. So a moderate size will do it. Then the third day of Hajj, which is the 10th of Dhul-Qa'dah, which is what we call here the day of Eid, for those of us who are here. The steps are as follows. You leave Muzdalifah after sunrise or after Fajr prayer. Okay? Go to Jamrat al-Aqabah. You throw 7 pebbles. You stop the talbiyah and you start the takbir of Eid. And the takbir can be done individually. You don't have to do it in a group. Okay? The takbir of Eid can be done individually. Okay? If you do it with a group, there is no harm doing it either way. Shave or cut your hair. Now we are in the Hajj, right? So the better reward is given for shaving your hair. Sacrifice an animal, and if paid, consider it done. Consider it done means you count that your sacrifice that you have already paid for is done on your behalf. What does this help you in? It helps you get rid of the ihram states. Okay? It gets you rid of, and this is called the minor ihlal, which is, it gives you less restrictions, but it keeps sexual activities out of the list. So you can shave your head, you can clip your nail, you can put perfumes, you can dress normally, you can do everything except sexual activities. Okay? You take off your ihram and put on your usual clothing. You go to Mecca and perform tawaf al-Hajj or tawaf al-Ifada if you can, and you perform 2 rak'ah behind Maqam Ibrahim. Of course, many of us will not be able to do that or even see Maqam Ibrahim. As you perform Hajj Tamattu', you then would have to perform the sa'i of Hajj. So you did the tawaf of Hajj, as we mentioned above here. Okay? You do the tawaf of Hajj. After you do the tawaf, you are still in Mecca. Then you will do the sa'i of Hajj. So after you do the tawaf of Hajj, there is one rukn missing. That is the sa'i. You never forget that. I'm talking about the mutamatta, the one who took off his ihram after or exited the ihram state after Umrah. Okay? Then you go back to Mina and stay overnight for the next couple of days. Okay? And in Mina, yes, you will see that the organization of the Jamarat are organized in this way. Mecca is towards this direction. Mecca is towards this direction. But you will be coming from the opposite side. You will be coming from the opposite side. You will see the large Jamra first, then the Wusta, then the small one will come last. In fact, you will see yourself shooted through a place you don't have a choice to walk against the crowd. Okay? So you will never be able to miss this or go in the opposite direction. Okay? Then the 4th day of Hajj, which is the 11th of Dhul-Qa'dah, Ayyam al-Tashriq, you go to Jamrat al-Aqabah, which is the first Jamra. Of course, whether you are in Mina or you are staying somewhere else and you come into Mina at night, but then in the daytime you go to take rest. If you come at Mina in the daytime and you do the Jamarat, but this time you will have to have 21 Jamra. Remember, the day before you only had 7, you threw the Jamarat of Al-Aqabah, and that was it for the first day. Okay? before you went for the tawaf in Hajj. But the fourth day of Hajj, which is the 11th, you will have to take the 21 and you will have to throw 3 of them. The Jabra, Kubra, Wusta, and Sughra. The same thing you will do on the 15th and on the 12th, and on the 13th of Al-Hijrah. And by then, you will leave Mina to Mecca. Your Hajj rituals by then are all complete. Okay? You are in your regular clothing. You can do everything, and including sexual activities. All what was haram is now halal, and you are only to do one last thing. That is Tawaf al-Wada' before you leave Mecca to travel out of Saudi Arabia. Okay? And that would be the last ritual of the trip. I'm not going to go for the spiritual aspects of Hajj. I'm going to stop at the rituals aspects of Hajj because those are most required for everybody. But if any group is interested in those, we can meet inshallah after the Isha prayer so that we keep our promise to finish as we promised inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك. Also after the Isha, if you have questions, we will take the questions.